Amen. All right, well, I hope you have a lesson there in front of you. Brother, if you don't, Brother Zach has those. I'm willing to give those to you. But we are looking at blessed are the peacemakers. And we are not talking about a big gun, all right? Some people say, I can help create peace, right? That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the peace that comes only from Christ. And that's where men think, man, we can bring things to peace, but only Christ can bring things to peace. If we look at Matthew and chapter number 5, and we're looking here, and let's just go ahead and read from verse number 1, and we'll read down through verse number 9, where we are. It says, "And seeing the multitude, he went up into a mountain, and when he was set, his disciples came unto him, and he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of God, of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." And then verse 9, where we're starting today, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. And I think it's important for us to just understand and to realize the importance it is that we live lives of peace. And it should be something that we should be very concerned about when we have a lack of peace in our life, when we have a lack of that taking place, that we would recognize it and that we would seek peace. In fact, that's an instruction for all Christians, that we're to, as much as lieth in us, we're supposed to seek peace with all men, right? That should be where our heart's desire is to be. And when it's not, it should be a reminder to us that there's something of this world that is affecting us. Those who are, that there's something of this life that is affecting that peace. And I wrote this down: those who are living for their kingdom will never know peace. And when we're living for the things of this earth, when we're living for the things of that we can possess here in this kingdom, as opposed to just living as we are part of the kingdom of heaven, then we'll never really know peace. And when we consider the idea, it says that for they shall be called the children of God. The things that we are seeking after and the things that we are desirous to have, seeking after to have peace, listen, are going to have to be heavenly things, right? The home that we live in, the home that you have, your children seek after things, right? They absolutely do seek after things, and there's identifying marks. I mean, as we go through life, my children will act in certain ways and they'll behave in certain ways, and you might do this too, but we'll look at each other and say, "That's your son." It's not our son anymore; it's her son, right? And it identifies them, right? I mean, the things that they live for, the things that they desire, the things that they are seeking after, identify them, or the way in which they're acting identifies them as that's definitely my daughter, that's definitely my son. What are we saying? It's kind of a joke sometimes, but I'm telling you, every one of us, we probably look at our children and go, "I know who they get that from, and it's not mom," right? I know who they're. I mean, that is exactly how I was at that age. And if you aren't wise enough to see that of yourself, I'm sure your parents will point it out for you. Like, yeah, you behave the exact same way, and we're sometimes oblivious to that. But when we think of blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. The greatest desire of God is to bring peace into this world that has been absent of peace because of the sin of mankind from the very beginning in the Garden of Eden. And it's God's desire to bring us back to a place of peace and to live in a place of peace. When we, just in the introduction, that was all pre-introduction. I was just more thoughts I had after the lesson's already written. But when you hear the world talk of peace, you can get mixed emotions, right? laughter at their ridiculous definition of it. And I mean, we just think, all right, hey, nobody's shooting nobody, so there's peace, right? But the reality is this: the only reason nobody's shooting nobody is because we both got our guns aimed at each other, and we've got we're in peace talks right now while we're pointing guns at one another. I mean, come on, that's just laughable. That's not peace. Just because we both come to a place that listen, I'll stop shooting if you stop shooting, but I got my eye on you. There's no peace there. There might be thousands of soldiers sitting at the border right now on the Ukraine, and maybe no shots got fired this morning. But I mean, somebody's standing there ready to push a button at any moment. Should the other side react, and there is no peace really in that. We think of peace in the Middle East, and even recently with the Abraham Accords that got signed here a little while ago, and it's amazing how we stop and go, wow, that's an amazing. I mean, really look at them and the agreements that were made in those accords, and people who would be the most excited about that seem to stop and go, well, wait a minute, you mean this isn't good because somebody else came up with this treaty of peace, and they wanted to fight about that. I'm just saying the world can't even have peace when it has peace, right? Because we didn't get this accomplished. The other side of the aisle got this accomplished. So because Trump did it, then it can't be peace. Because he can't bring peace. Only somebody else can bring peace, which is a lack of peace in and of itself, is what I'm trying to say. The world outside of Jesus Christ does not know and cannot have an understanding of peace. It really shouldn't surprise us that the world, just even when they have peace, we got to fight about who made the peace treaty, because we don't know peace. They don't know what peace is, and they can't have peace. In 3,500 years, and you say, I've read different statistics. We'll go with yours then, but these are just generic, if you will. But in 3,500 years of recorded history, right, that we can really go back and study military history and stuff like that, the world has been without war 286 years. If you go back 3,500 years from now. Literally less than 10% of the time that we would have what we would call recorded military history, the world has been at peace, or what they would call peace. The reality is they're just getting ready for the next war. Since World War I, for every year of war, there have been 20 minutes of peace around the world. 20 minutes of peace. Almost all the world leaders agree that the Middle East must have peace for the world to have peace. However, consider all the wars and treaties that have been made with Israel. And yet, what happens to those treaties? They get broken over and over and over again. Because, friend, listen to me. This world, it's not because they did wrong. No, it's because this world lusts to have. And this world desires to have. We're going to look at that in James in James in chapter 4 in just a moment. But friend, listen to me. It doesn't matter whether it's in the Middle East or in my kitchen last night while kids are trying to do dishes, right? The problem is that I can come in and say, "Hey, we're at peace. We're not talking. We're not even talking to each other anymore. Like all speech is off right now. Just do the dishes." And I turn my back and walk away, and guess what? Within 2 minutes, just like your kitchen, within 2 minutes, right? There's another fight going on, right? But wait, we weren't even supposed to talk to one another anymore, right? We were supposed to be completely silent. Just do your dishes in peace, and it's almost sometimes seems as if it's an impossibility. And the problem is not that just I'm seeking peace more than they are. No, that's not the problem, right? It's not because one country in the Middle East is seeking peace more than Israel, or Israel seeking peace more than another, or any other war that's ever been fought. Like I was just so seeking peace that this war broke out. No. We're going to look at it in James in a minute. It's because of the lust of mankind that we lust and desire to have, right? And thus war takes place and wars break out. Let me find it. If you want to see why the world, and this is just, again, in your introduction, if you want to see why the world has such chaos It is because of warped minds such as Adolf Hitler, who said in 1924, mankind has grown strong in external struggles, and it will only perish through eternal peace. Like this is what literally, this is what makes life the struggle that we have, the war, the fight. He was struggling to find and struggling to have, he literally was backwards, if we can say it that way, in his thinking, completely 180 degrees from the truth of God's word. Right? God desires for us to know eternal peace, and only in knowing Christ can we have eternal peace. Only in and through Him. That was in his book. But the world's idea of peace is such a joke. About Ambrose Bierce defined it like this in the Devil's Dictionary in 1911. In international affairs, a period of cheating between two periods of fighting, right? And that's that kind of peace where we said the peace, like, hey, we're pointing guns at each other and we're trying to get an upper hand so that when we fire our guns again, we can obliterate you. I mean, that's the kind of, we're cheating in the midst of that peace. And you say, well, why would you say a statement like that? Because of where it came from, the Devil's Dictionary. I mean, that's the mind of the devil. He's trying to get the upper hand. He's trying to have control. He's seeking after, desirous after, that he might be able to raise himself up in a place of power and in a place of control, and thus, listen to me, he has created unrest, and there has been a lack of peace since men and women have decided, you know what, we're going to give in to the ways of the devil, and we're going to seek peace in that way. And basically, what's peace we're seeking is the peace I want. We can have peace as long as I get what I want. Right? That's again, goes back to James 4, the lust of man's heart. If we can have what I want, then we can have the lust of man's heart. And I want us to understand this because when he says, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God, we understand what Jesus Christ, he looked at the Pharisees and he says, listen, you're of your father, who? The devil. He said, the reason that you were having all these problems is because you're of your father, the devil. The actions that they had, the philosophies they had, the lives that they were living, identified them not as God's children, but as children of the devil, children that were full of lust and desirous for power and desirous to have things. Look at that second paragraph in the introduction. The world's false notions of peace are all the more reason the disciples of Jesus, the disciple of Jesus has a blessedness, a joy not known outside of Jesus. He said, peace I leave with you, in John 14:27. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you. And look at this. Not as the world giveth, give I unto you. This is nothing of the world. This cannot come from any other source other than from God. You will not be a peacemaker and you will not identify as a child of God. If you're trying to do things in a worldly fashion, in a worldly way, trying to gain an upper hand, trying to have the preeminence, trying to make sure that everybody sees it from your way, I'm telling you, when you run into somebody that their whole world is wrapped up into their image, right? That they're so concerned with what everybody thinks about them, and they're so concerned with how everybody views them. Friend, listen to me. You are not you're not talking to someone who is at peace with God. You're not. They're trying to make everybody at peace with them. There's a problem there. There's a problem there. Because, listen, somebody can have the peace of God and listen, and not know anything about me. Right? But when I'm so concerned, everybody's got to know me. Everybody's got to know about me. Listen. You're telling on yourself that you're void of the peace of God. It's not as the world giveth, and let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. John 14:27. This world, the peace that they have, is not without trouble, and it is not without fear. And so we want to look at this and emphasize this, that there is nothing of this world or nothing of the philosophies of this world that will bring real peace. So number one, let's look at this. Hostility in the world and God's response to it. Hostility in the world and God's response to it. If you find James in chapter 4, we're going to be there in just a moment. And I know it's probably familiar to you, but at the same time, it's definitely to our text this morning that we would look to it and view from it. But God is the God of peace. And we're not going. I'm not going to take time and to go through every verse of Scripture talking about the peace of God and how He is the God of peace. I believe there are scores of verses that will verify that fact. But the Old Testament, in the Old Testament, one of His titles is Jehovah Shalom. All right, Jehovah Shalom. The Lord is our peace. That's what it is. That's who He is. He is our peace. In the New Testament, He is called the God of peace, no less than 6 times, the God of peace. And so we need to understand this. God is the God of peace. There is no other source of peace. And then B, war, death, confusion, and chaos originated with the devil. It originated with the devil. Can you imagine the peace in heaven, right? And you can go to Ezekiel and you can look at this. Isaiah talks about the peace and tranquility that was there in heaven before Lucifer stood up and said, "I'm going to be as the Most High. I'm going to be just like Him. I'm going to make myself just like Him. I'm going to raise myself up. I'm going to put myself in a position of authority." And other people raise themselves up to follow after Him. I mean, who does God think He is to tell us what to do? But He purposed to be like God, and Satan rose up in rebellion against God and had to be cast down, right? And when we think about things being done in heaven as they are in earth, God is not taking opinion polls, right? He doesn't do that. A God who is God knew what was right. God who is God understood who He was, and He understood what His creation was and the position they held. And listen, God was desirous that was not desirous that He might be able to cast anyone down. But friend, listen to me. If we're going to raise ourselves up in rebellion to God, He will do that very thing. And you say, well, man, this is all because of God's pride. No, not at all. This was the pride of a created being looking at the Creator and saying, "Listen, I am desirous to hold your position and have your position." It had nothing to do with the pride of God. It had everything to do with the pride of the devil himself, and that same pride found itself in the garden. And just think about the garden, right? That perfect place. Where everything was provided, where God had put man in control to subdue the earth and to multiply upon the earth, and man, it was just it would have been a place of tranquility. It would have been a place of peace, right? In fact, that's the place that the world desires to be. We want to get to utopia, and I love. My dad said this years ago. I thought, man, that's such a wise thought. The world, looks at the chaos we're in, right? And their desire, their plan is, man, we're going to get into enlightenment. We're going to get into utopia and get into that place of, peace where we're all sitting around the campfire singing Kumbaya. That's where they're heading. And the problem is, God started us out in a place of peace, right? And our sin has messed things up. Our pride has messed things up so bad that we're in the place that we're at today, which is that we're headed to destruction. And so the world started with a big bang. The world's idea, we started with a big bang and we're heading towards peace, right? And God said, no, we started with peace and we're heading towards a big bang, right? He's going to melt this earth with fervent heat. That it's completely opposite in the thinking and in their thinking. But but then here again, the sin of Lucifer came down and said, listen, you don't have to do things God's way. God shouldn't be your boss. You can make your own decisions. You can make your own choices. That's what took place in the Garden of Eden. And listen, And from that time on, among mankind, from the very beginning, there's been war. There's been war. Well, why? Because she looked upon the fruit, that it was good to be eaten. She desired to have it. Listen, she lusted for it and took it and got what she wanted and then shared it with others, shared it with Adam, right? He took it and he ate. Friend, listen to me. It's because we're instead of doing things God's way, we're listening to the lies of the devil, and we found ourselves in a complete mess. In Romans chapter 5 and verse number 12 is very clear how, listen, sin entered this world. How? By sin, or by Adam, because Adam chose to not to break the law of God. Thus sin entered into the world, and death by sin, and it's been a mess ever since. And through the centuries, there has been war and unrest and confusion and turmoil, and man is not at peace with God, therefore not at peace with himself, therefore not at peace with other men. And he can't get there without God. He can't get there without doing it God's way. Look at James in chapter number 4. James in chapter number 4. You say, well, why is man in such a mess? You say, well, it's somebody else's fault. No, it's not just somebody else's fault. All right? The fault is sin, and sin comes from man, right? I chose to sin. I choose to sin. It says, from whence come wars, verse number 1, from whence come wars and fightings among you? Come they not hence, even of your lusts that war in your members? That's where they come from. That's where they stem from. That's where everything takes place. If you go over to chapter number 1, it says this. They say, well, how do we get to that place of lust? He says in chapter number 1, verse number 13, let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God, for God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. That apple, we say apple, maybe the grape, I don't know. But that tree in the garden, the knowledge of good and evil, that God said, you're not to eat of, right? Then that was like, man, that was the temptation of God. No, that was God saying, thou shalt not. That's not a temptation, right? That's not God tempting anyone, but look at what rather happened. But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own what? Lust, and enticed. And when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin, and sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death. But listen, it started with man lusting to have that which he cannot obtain, and that which is not his, and that's where wars and fightings come. Is when men see something that they desire to have that is not theirs, and friend, listen to me. And in their struggle to have it, there's going to be a fight. There's going to be a fight. That takes place nation to nation. That takes place family to family. Feuds going on between families. That takes place in the middle of churches. That takes place in the middle of homes. That takes place in the middle of siblings, right? There are rivalries that come up and fightings that come up. Every bit of it start with men looking at something they desire and lusting for it. Lusting to the point that where I'm going to do whatever I have to do to obtain it. I'm going to get that respect if it kills me. I'm going to have it my way if it kills me or you. And listen. And we're going to go after it so hard and so long and so much with so much vigor, friend. Listen, that wars take place. And if you went up chapter number 3, in verse number 13, we say, well, what man? Where does this come from? Listen, it doesn't come from God. It comes from the devil. It says, who is a wise man? Chapter 3 and verse 13. Who is a wise man and endued with knowledge among you? Let him show out of a good conversation his works with meekness of wisdom. But if ye have bitter envyings and strife in your heart, glory not and lie not against the truth. This wisdom descendeth not from above, but is earthly, sensual, what's that? Devilish. It's devilish. This wisdom is not of God. This is devilish. This lust that you have, it's devilish. It says, for where envying and strife is, there is confusion and every evil work. But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, easy to be entreated, full of mercy and of good fruits, without partiality, without hypocrisy. The fruit of righteousness is sown in peace of them that make peace. Right? Them that make peace. Them that are content in that which God has given them. And the reality is, when we're thinking about this peacemaker being the child of God, we're talking about a contentment to dwell with God, right? That we're content to dwell with Him as He's the Father, He's in charge, He's an authority, He's in control, and we have that contentment to dwell there, as opposed to saying, no, I'm going to go out and I'm going to get my own my own home. I'm going to go out and start and do things my own way. I'm going to have my own life. And I don't think there's a father alive that at one point hasn't had to say, no, listen, this is my house, right? We're going to do things my way. All right, we're going to, in some way, shape, or form, to where he's like, no, in this house, this is how we do things, right? And so the reality is this, that when you and I are desirous to have and are full of lust, and we're operating in this wisdom that is from beneath, that is devilish, friend, listen, it is a sign that we are discontented with the things that the Father has provided, and we are going to go forth and we're going to find it of ourselves, and we're going to get it for ourselves. And I'm telling you, I've made some foolish decisions, right? Because I was not content with what I had. Yes, sir. Made a lot of foolish decisions. I spent a lot of money because I wasn't just content with what I had. My dad, when I got my first car, he gave me $300 because in 1960s, his dad gave him $300. Well, in the 90s, $300 was not as much money as the 1960s. But that's the logic, we went with. And so anyway, and I got my first car, and it was probably a lot like your first car. It wasn't like nice. It really wasn't. It was like, it had 4 tires and it ran, and it got point A to point B. That's my first car. It wasn't anything special. And I'll tell you, there's other kids, right? Who they'd come to school, and their dad bought. There was one kid, when the Dodge Ram came out, his dad bought him a brand new Dodge Ram pickup, and I'm like, really? You got a Dodge Ram pickup? I got $300, and there's all sorts of different vehicles at school, but honestly, got looking around at, man, they have that and they have that, and I was motivated to go work, right? I was motivated to go work, not just because I needed to learn how to work hard, but because I wasn't content with what I had, right? And I was going to go out and I'm going to go get a job, and I'm going to make some money so I can buy a better car. I want another car. I want a nicer car. I want a newer car. I want this kind of car, And listen, it wasn't because the car that I'd gotten with Dad didn't run. Wasn't because it didn't have gas in it. No. Listen, Dad provided the gas for it. He paid the insurance for it. There were chores around the house that he expected to be done because of that, right? But I simply wasn't content with the car I had, right? And so I went out and I expended a lot of effort, a lot of time, and spent money to get what I wanted, right? And I'm telling you, that's the same thing. That's the same reality in each and every one of our lives, that when we're discontent, it's always going to cost us more. It's not that Mom and Dad didn't that the home that I was in wasn't providing, is that I was discontented with what was being provided. Our children, listen, we need to help them listen to help them understand. It's the proverb. What is it? Better is he that hath. It just came to mind, but there's a proverb that better is he that hath a little. Come on, brain, came in my head, huh? I don't remember. I'll have to remember that and write it down next week. But we need to learn to be content with what we've been given. We need to teach our children to be content with what we've been given. They're saying, well, somebody else has more. Listen, it doesn't matter where you go. Probably somebody else will always have more, all right? But but guess what? The same Father who allows them to have more could also allow you to have more if that was His intent and desire. Right? He can. We need to learn to get to a place of contentment with that which He has given. And if we get there, you know what we would find ourselves doing? We find ourselves in a place of peace and showing others how to have peace. Right? That we don't need this, we don't need that, we don't have, and again, there's nothing wrong with having things. There's nothing wrong with having possessions. I'm not saying that at all. But listen to me. We need to learn to be content with what such things as we have. Right? We need to learn to be content instead of lustful to get more gain. Amen? And so, man, we almost got through point number 1 today. Good job, class. Way to go. Good job.